Hey everyone, today we are in northern New Hampshire and we're going to check out what the drought has been doing up here. So, supposedly in the North Conway area of New Hampshire, the drought is extremely bad. We're going to see what it looks like. Supposedly like half of their forest is close to dying from the drought. On my way up here this morning, a lot of trees along 91 North in Vermont are doing very bad. Probably the worst I've ever seen. A lot of trees are just dying out. And also another area of the forest I could tell is not drought related, but it looks like winter time. It's the gypsy moths, the European gypsy moths. They look like they have just eaten everything. The gypsy moths love maple trees, they love oak trees. Those are their favorites. When they're done with that, they'll go on to other leafy trees, and they'll even eat pine trees. Yeah, I can see this river right down here is completely dried up. But just coming up here, looking at the mountains, I can see a lot of very brown patches. But where I came from this morning, down in Massachusetts, supposedly they're in a severe drought. Up here, supposedly only a moderate drought. But yet, certain areas of the forest up north look a lot worse. The reason for that is Massachusetts is more used to droughts because they're more drought tolerant. Because Mass is used to getting heat waves, it's used to going without rain for much longer than up here. So the roots on the trees are much deeper. The trees down there can take it a lot longer. Trees up here, especially in the White Mountains, are very shallow. That's why you're always constantly seeing trees uprooted. The roots usually don't go deeper than 2 feet, despite this area having extremely high water tables. You could probably dig down less than 10 feet in most spots and it'll fill with water. Some places only a couple feet, but the roots just can't reach it. Now up here has a rain deficit of well over a foot. Typically this area, it's supposed to get 1/10 of an inch of rain every day. That doesn't happen all at once, but there should be about 1 inch a week. We actually just got a good downpour last night, and it didn't really make the water level go up at all on any of the rivers. Up here, they're still very dry. We're heading out to see some of the worst of it today. Alright, right now, traveling further down, this is Route 302, and right here's a hiking trail for Ripley Falls. Coming up in another mile or two is Arethusa Falls. Right here on the left side of the road, I can see a lot of these trees are losing leaves, becoming thinner from the drought. But just about 2 months ago, there was a pretty large forest fire around here. It took a few weeks to put out since it was in such a remote area. It is out now, but it left a good area of the forest completely scorched. Now this area, the environment did not do these trees a favor. For the past 20 years, this area has been trending much wetter than normal, so it probably got these trees more used to the water and probably made them develop more shallow roots over time. But in 2020 is when it started getting extremely dry. But this year is something else. Those past couple years, which were supposedly very dry and a drought, I could not see any trees dying. But I noticed it early this spring. Just a whole bunch of them just started dying as temperatures got higher. Up in northern New England, like where I am now, they typically only get a few days a year above 90. But this year, it's almost every day the past month, which is a bit concerning. These trees aren't used to that extreme heat every single day, so that also will be affecting them. It's just like if you take down a row of pine trees and there's another row of pine trees behind them, they're going to start dying because certain pine needles and leaves are grown by the tree in the shade. They're used to the shade. If they're suddenly exposed to sunlight, they're most likely going to die. Different leaves and pine needles need different amounts of sun, the same stuff they were originally grown in. And now what you're about to see once we get up here to Conway is one of the worst caterpillar infestations I've ever seen. I was up here about a month ago looking at it. It looked like winter. By now, they're probably starting to grow back, but what those caterpillars did was defoliated everything. So all that extreme heat was able to get down to the forest floor, resulting in it becoming even drier. Alright, now we're in the town of Bartlett, New Hampshire. This area, you can start to see how the trees are very thin. There's a lot of dead trees around here. Like right here, coming up. Many of these trees are dead. Some of them are struggling to grow leaves around here. Usually this is a beautiful shady road. Driving down this road, if I didn't know any better, I would say it's really early spring, since all the trees are so weak. But that is gypsy moths. The caterpillars eat everything in sight. They'll move on to pine trees and even eat the grass if they run out of food. And this year, it being so dry, there's not as much water to go around to fix this problem. The trees are having a lot harder time regenerating. Pine trees can't survive defoliation one time, but leafy trees typically can survive about 3 to 5 years in a row of this. But I'm sure that's reduced because there's not enough water to regenerate. Now, many of these trees I'm noticing are only about half regenerating, meaning the rest of the tree is not going to come back from this. Now, this same thing happened to Palmer, Massachusetts, about 5 years back. The caterpillars defoliated everything, resulting in about 1 out of every 3 trees in the town dying, and tree crews have been working hard to remove them before they start falling into the streets, on train tracks, on houses, and also to prevent fires. Because eventually, if these trees keep dying from bugs and droughts, it will eventually result in fires. Check out the water level on the Saco River. It's pretty low. Some of the lowest I've seen, and I gotta think about, this is probably even lower a couple days ago because we did get a quick inch of rain. This river has serious erosion problems. A lot of the houses around here have to build retaining walls. I've always came around here trying to see these culverts in action. It's never happened. The water has to be about 5 feet higher because they added 2 massive culverts here next to the bridge because the bridge couldn't handle the amount of water during the spring thaws. As you see, the state here had to put a whole bunch of rock to protect this hill as it starts eroding like this, pretty close to that house. What I'm noticing on this section of road is a lot of the trees are trying to grow their leaves back from the gypsy moths, but it's so dry that the baby leaves have just crinkled up and they're all falling off and drying up. I'm also noticing a lot of these massive, tall white pines are also looking very weak, where they might be at the point of no return themselves. I see one right there standing tall in the middle of the screen. That's dead, not coming back. The other ones around it do look sick. Now here's an area of forest that has nothing to do with the caterpillars. I can see up here in all these white pine trees, they're thinning. I can tell by the beginning of the year they were full. I can tell they recently just lost everything. Most of these probably are going to completely die and not come back. Over here across the street, there's a good amount of them that are completely bald. Good amount of trees here that are thin, losing their leaves. just a very dry situation. I just stopped to get something to eat at the Walmart around here. I can start to see how dry it is up here in the mountains. A lot of those trees are starting to yellow and turn brown. Here's an up-close look of a lot of the trees I'm showing. See how they're just losing all their leaves? And pine needles here are being lost. Because when a tree is in this sort of condition right here, where there's not many left, they're just falling off, this can technically recover, but the way things are going, I don't see much hope in these pine trees, at least. They're cutting a bunch of trees down right here on this section of road. Alright, we just crossed the state line back into Maine, and right here you can see a lot of the trees are turning yellow as they're running out of water, and they're either dying or going back into hibernation. I think it's a little of both. Right here off to the right, there's a lot of trees that are just outright dead already. Right here I see a lot of pine trees on the left that are dead. Pine trees are especially the ones dying. That's why down in like Massachusetts, the drought, it doesn't seem as bad down there for multiple reasons. There's not as many pine trees, which are the most susceptible. The soil down there is a lot better. Up here, it's more sandy and rocky. It doesn't hold water. It drains faster. It can't retain much. And up here, they have much more shallow root systems. Many factors against the trees surviving the drought. The area I'm currently driving through looks pretty healthy. Everything looks nice and green. So this area of Maine actually looks pretty green. This is pretty cool. They're having something going on here. This whole campground is just Airstream trailers. They had a large electric message board pointing in here saying, "Welcome Airstreamers." I just had to show you guys that little clip. There's probably thousands of them throughout these campground fields. That was short-lived. This area looks like the forest is struggling again. Now, I am actually personally at home a little bit worried about forest fires. So any trees that are dead, that are anywhere near the property, I have been removing them. But the only bright side of that is I can use it for heating in the wintertime. Pine can be burned inside as long as it's dry, because it's the sap if you're burning greener stuff, which causes issues with chimney fires. And I am stockpiling that. It only has half the BTU value of maple or oak, so you need to have a lot more of it to get through the winter. But actually this year I actually did install a wood burning stove because I'm worried about the heating bill, honestly. So the dead trees at least will help with that, because I heat with diesel, which at the time was up to, I think, right now it's $5.50 a gallon. It was around $6.50 a gallon, but it's going down. I estimated at that high price, it probably would have cost me around $6,000 a year, which is not normal. Usually I pay around maybe $2,500 a year for heating, but that price was outrageous. So I went ahead and put a wood burning stove in, and this year, if you go ahead and do that, the government will give you a 26% rebate off your taxes for the products, the wood stove, any piping or equipment to go along with it. That includes hot water heaters that run on wood, because wood is considered green energy, and that's an incentive to get you to do more of that. Now, I would only be subsidizing the heating bill with wood to make it lower, but if I was to go completely wood, I'd still be using half the price in fuel, even if I bought the wood myself. Because a cord of firewood is a lot cheaper than the BTU equivalent of fuel. This area, the forest looks really thin. I see a lot of trees right here that have lost all their needles. Here's a really dead section of forests. Just take a look up on this hill that we're approaching. The majority of those trees are dead or shocked back into hibernation. Check out this awesome house right here. Isn't that cool? It's a huge tree house. It's got a couple trees growing right through the building. It's called In the Trees, Tree Houses, Mountain Disc Golf, and Hiking Trails. Alright, now that I'm a bit deeper into Maine, this area looks so dry and dead. Is that showing up on camera? How many trees are starting to turn brown around here?